Nature and scope of psychology. This is divided into two subfields, which is early divisions of psychology and subfields in psychology. First, let's see the introduction to nature and scope of psychology, which is the first point here is you can read by it by yourself. It is just the definition of psychology, and if you want to know more about behavior, you can watch the previous video. It is specially for the topic behavior. We have discussed about behavior, what exactly behavior is in the last video. You can watch it. The next point is also something which is related to the first point. It just tells what psychology does. If there's a person who is put in a certain situation and he shows a particular behavior in that situation, so the field of psychology just studies about why he is showing that behavior. That's what the second point means. There are two branches of science, which is basic and applied, or you can also call academic and applied. In the place of basic, you can call academic as well. We will use the term academic. Now, I'm not gonna tell you a lot, but I'm just going to tell you some of the definitions of what academic is and applied is. So, academic is just something which gives rise to academic curiosity, such as Newton asked the question, "Why did apple fall?" and that gave rise to the theory of gravity. And applied is, if I were to tell you the definition of applied, it is just like applying the inputs from basic or academic branch to solve problems. So, these two fields are kind of correlated. According to, now from here important part starts, which is according to Parmeswaram and Bina. Now it is not Parmeswaram, it is Parmeswaran M. There, and at the place of M there is N, and Bina 1988. According to them, psychology is classified into general and differential psychology. Now what is general psychology? General psychology is something which is related to generalities and similarities, whereas differential psychology is something which is related to individual differences. Now, if you want to know about similarities and individual differences, we talked about it in the last video. You can watch it. Early divisions of psychology: experimental and non experimental. So, the early divisions of psychology were experimental and non experimental. Let's first see what is experimental. This branch started with the research studies of physiological, learning, and perception processes. They are primarily engaged. Now, this second point is important. They are primarily engaged in basic research and study fundamental processes such as learning, perception, emotions, etc. by experimental method. So, this division of experimental psychology, this is like studying fundamental processes such as learning, perception, and emotions by experimental method. Now, this is experimental psychology. Now, there is experimental psychologist. There are, in the next topic, which is subfields of psychology, we will talk about experimental psychologist in depth. Right now, you can just remember the name. So, the experimental psychology studies how behavior is modified and how people retain it, processing of information, how human sensory system works. So, it is just like a experimental psychology studies how your mind processes information, how sensory system works, how your behavior is modified, and how people retain that modification. That is what experimental psychologist is. Now, non-experimental. The non-experimental branch included personality, social, and development. Now, these three things, personality, social, and development. In this, social and development is divided into few sub-branches, such as developmental psychology is divided into child psychology, adolescent psychology, and gerontology. Whereas social is divided into applied social psychology and organizational psychology. Now, this child psychology, or adolescent psychology, gerontology, social psychology, organizational psychology, we will be talking about this in the subfields of psychology. Now, subfields of psychology. These are all the subfields of psychology which you can read. There are 23. In the next two videos, we will be covering all of them in depth. Each and every topic we will be learning of what is biopsychology, what is cognitive psychology, and what is comparative psychology, etc. etc. So you can read these subfields of psychology by yourself. And if you want to take a screenshot, you can. I will give you some time.